Alright, so we're back today for our next episode in this Target Panic series we've been putting together with my buddy Andy May. And in our last video, I think it was episode 52, Andy walked us through how to diagnose what Target Panic is and helped us understand why that's an issue. Now, if you've experienced this, which I have, which Andy has, the best way to get rid of it, the best way to defeat Target Panic is to start using and utilizing and achieving an unanticipated release. So today what Andy is going to do is help us understand what an unanticipated release is and then exactly how to shoot in a way that allows you to get that kind of release. He's going to walk us through what an unanticipated release looks like with a couple different release options, including an index finger release, a thumb button release, and a hinge style release. And then he's also going to talk through what this will actually look like when using it in a hunting scenario. So my advice would be, if you haven't seen that last episode, number 52, definitely watch that first, because that's going to help you understand, what Target Panic is, what that looks like in the field, why it's an issue. And then today we're going to talk through how to get rid of it, how to use this new type of shooting methodology to not get that jumpy trigger finger. Also, you might want to listen to episode number 218 of the podcast. Andy talked through a lot more on Target Panic there as well. This whole way of shooting using this unanticipated release, that's what I've been trying to do the last year, is help me a ton, because I had issues with Target Panic. I was rushing some shots, punching the trigger. This has helped me a ton. So I think this is going to be helpful to you as well. And in the next video, we're going to talk through some drills that you can use to practice developing the same type of shot sequence that Andy's using and that I'm now using too. So hopefully you find this helpful. I'm going to throw it back to that interview with Andy. Check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Okay, so the goal is we're trying to achieve an unanticipated release. For me, I was able to do that by shooting with back tension. So I got a little paracord with a D-loop here. I got a wrist strap release, and we talked about releases on the podcast. If you're gonna use a trigger release, you want something with no travel, and you want something that's adjustable. So I got a Carter here. I'm gonna load it up on here. And one of the main things it is, you want to be able to load this trigger up without it firing. See, I can hammer on this thing and it's not gonna go. Okay, so I draw my bow back, I load up the trigger, and I put the pin on the target and I just let it float. Okay, it does not matter what the pin is doing, I just let it float. As long as I'm looking at the bullseye, it constantly recenters itself. So I'm not worried about it. Pin float is okay. Let your pin float, let it go. I like to say let the pin go. Just let it do what it's gonna do. Just stare at your spot. Now you'll notice a certain time frame after you draw back, there'll be a frame where the pin kind of settles. That's when I like to start my shot execution. In a hunting situation, you're not gonna have that luxury most of the time. You're gonna have to make it go when it's time, but you're gonna do it using an unanticipated release. Now the way I do it is I squeeze my back muscles. So I'm gonna demonstrate here. I draw back, I load up the trigger, okay, I hook my finger around and it's not gonna go off because it's set heavy. I let the pin float and then I just pull, pull, pull until the shot fires. I don't know when it's gonna fire, but I have my release set so that I know it's gonna go in this short window. And that really works well for a hunting situation, because when you're doing the drills, I always say set it heavy. That ingrains that pull through shot sequence, that shot execution. But in a hunting situation, after you master that, you might get to the point where you want to lighten it up just a little, so that when you have that shot on that deer, you start applying pressure and it doesn't take as much weight to go off. You want it to go off in a window time frame like this. You don't want to be pull for 8 or 9 seconds to make it go, but you also don't want it to go right when you start pulling. You want a little short window in there. So I'm going to demonstrate one more time with the index finger release. Draw back, I load up the trigger. You'll see a lot of guys mention like this, deep hook around the trigger, and that's fine. I have a little bit of tension here by holding these fingers back, so what I do is I just rest everything on there. I don't like tension. I'm pulling through with my elbow, with my back muscles. I'm trying to imagine my elbow touching something right behind it, about 2 inches. So I just relax. I lay my fingers on it. It is a deep hook, and then I just pull through the shot with my back. Try to focus on pulling my elbow straight back just letting the pin float until it fires. So this is what I personally use. It's a thumb release. Same thing with the trigger. You want something that's not going to move, adjustable. You apply pressure and it breaks clean like a really fine rifle trigger. So we're going to demonstrate how we do it with this release. Same thing, draw back, anchor, and I load the thumb trigger. At no point during the shot execution am I moving my thumb. It actually, if you zoom in real quick here, when I pull back, I increase the back tension and it actually pulls my thumb into the trigger, kind of like this motion. I'm exaggerating it here so you can see, but I load that trigger up and then I gently, gradually increase back tension and pull through, and my thumb is actually dragged into the trigger, and that's what sets the release off. So again, I'm using back tension and I'm pulling, pulling, pulling. I'm not using my thumb. It's strictly achieved by activating the back muscles and pulling through the shot. And that's how you achieve the surprise release with a thumb button. The next release we have here is a hinge. This is really common with target archers. This is actually what I taught myself with to achieve an unanticipated release. It's a really cool release. I shoot it almost all off season, like when I'm shooting leagues or 3D shoots or something like that. I really like to shoot this release. It just reinforces that unanticipated release, that surprise shot. And you notice there's no trigger, so you can't really punch this. I mean, you can, but it's really difficult because there is no trigger. It actually fires on rotation. So we're gonna demonstrate how that works here. This is one good one for beginners too, because there's a safety. There's no fear of it going off. I can rotate this and it will not go off, but once I hit that safety, it will. But we're going to demonstrate how the hinge fires. Okay, so same thing. Draw back. I'm going to let the pin float. I let the safety off, and then this one fires on rotation. You still pull through the shot. You probably didn't see that, but what it does is the hinge fires on rotation. So as it rotates from the index finger to the middle and ring finger, the weight transfer sets the release off. So again, there's no trigger to punch, so it's really, really difficult or almost impossible to time the release. You really can only let that pin float and just relax. You can pull through, but the way this is, it's on like a hinge or kind of almost like a fulcrum. The more you relax, it automatically starts to rotate. You don't really need to do it manually at all. You just relax your hand, apply a gentle back tension, and the thing rotates and fires. I used this for one season hunting. I made 3 really good shots on 3 animals, but it's not my first choice for hunting, mainly because what I found is when I started doing some really severe angles, it changed the speed of the release. It didn't actually change the speed of the release, but my form changed enough where the release wasn't as consistent as in shooting on flat ground. So maybe that's I needed more practice, but it just isn't my first choice in a hunting situation. But there's lots of guys out there that use them, that do really well with them, so it may be right for you, or one of the other options might be better. We talked about trying to achieve that unanticipated release, and we're gonna try to see what that looks like in a hunting situation. I'm gonna go through my shot sequence, what works for me. This may not work for you, but at least to kind of give you an idea of what's going on in my head. So a deer's coming in, steps into the opening, and I'm ready for the shot. I draw back, come to anchor, center my peep with my sight housing, and I bend at the waist. Always bend at the waist. It maintains your T formation. That'll keep you much more consistent with your shots. So I bend at the waist and I put that pin on the deer's vitals. I actually pick a spot, pick a hair, anything, the crease, something to stare at, and just let your pin float. It'll constantly recenter itself over and over on that spot. Just let your pin float. It doesn't matter what the pin's doing. And then when I decide to shoot, that's when I start my shot execution. I squeeze my back muscles. I don't move my thumb at all on this trigger. I squeeze my back muscles and pull through the shot. So by doing that, by not moving my thumb, I'm just increasing the back tension, pulling through the shot, just letting that pin float. The only thing I'm focusing on is my shot execution. I'm letting the pin do whatever it needs to do. And if you can do that, if you can let go of that pin, focus on the spot and run that shot execution separate, the arrow is going to go there. The pin's constantly recentering itself. That's where the arrow is going to go.